Welcome back to episode 2 of the Weekly Ramble. Now, usually we are all very positive on here and we're smiling and laughing and talking about great moments in life. But unfortunately, this morning we had some sad news, didn't we, Dad?
We did. It's a tough one, this, Theo, because stick with me, yeah?
Yeah.
Because 3 hours ago we got news that...
Do you want me to say it?
No. We learned 3 or 4 hours ago that our beloved Benji, Thogdog, passed away this morning, and I don't know how to describe. The best way to think about this is, in this life, Theo, there are dog people and there are non-dog people, and if you're a non-dog person, you might not know why it's hit us in this way. But Benji, if you're a dog person, you know that you take on a dog, it becomes part of your family. And you love that dog like a brother or a son. And Benji came to us about 6 years ago, and it's fair to say Benji was, I hate to use the past tense, was the most just delightful soul. He was, I would describe him, and only dog owners will get this, as like a best friend. So today I've lost my best friend. Now Benji lived with my mum up in Lancaster, and last night my mum called me and said, please can we have a video conference, because Benji today collapsed during a walk, then came home, couldn't stand up, couldn't eat, and then this morning refused water. So I went on a video conference last night, and it's like a blessing in disguise. It was like a way to say goodbye. Whenever we arrived in Lancaster, usually before a Bolton game, we'd go up to the front door. Benji would come running out, circle the car. If you weren't there, he'd be like, "Where's Theo?"
I know, yeah.
It was honestly, he was like, "Where's Theo?"
If you're on your own, you'd be gutted.
Because Benji was just, it was unconditional love.
Yeah.
You loved a dog and he loved you back. And what he wanted was his meals, his drink, and a good long walk down the canals of Lancaster.
Do you know what I think, Dad? We have audiences from all around the world, and some audiences don't understand the kind of relationship a family has with a dog. But I think what it comes down to is, because they don't speak a language, you can't speak to them.
No.
The only way you can feel a connection with them is pure love. And when you lose them, it hits you hard.
Yeah. Because human beings, sadly, can be very cruel to each other. They can be snarky, there can be negativity. That's not all the time, of course, but with dogs, simply a smile. I mean, whenever I stayed up in Lancaster, Benji would sleep at my feet. And when I got up in the morning, he came and he'd lick my face and he'd be like, right, come on, let's go downstairs, breakfast first, and then we'll go for a walk. And it was just unconditional love. And the story of Benji and Chloe is it's a tragic one. He had different owners for 10 years. And they tragically died in a car accident on the M6. So the dogs went to a rescue home. And you take up the story at that point, Theo.
Because me and my grandma, before we had like a few hours before the Bolton game, we decided to pop down to the care home, and all the dogs were like screaming in our faces. Like, a lot of these dogs are crazy. But one of the kennels had Chloe and Benji, this small dog and this big dog. And they were just kind of, they really wanted to get out that place because everybody around them was so loud and aggressive. Decided to pop down to the care home, and all the dogs were like screaming in our faces. Like, a lot of these dogs are crazy. But one of the kennels had Chloe and Benji, this small dog and this big dog. And they were just kind of, they really wanted to get out that place because everybody around them was so loud and aggressive.
Yeah.
But they were just the sweethearts, and they were the diamond in the rough in that building.
Yes.
And I just convinced my grandma.
Yeah.
I must have been 17, 18. I convinced my grandma to get these dogs, bring them into the life. I didn't even know about their old owners passing away, but they were always so positive on life. You know, they were always, you know, you turn up to the door at your grandparents and they're barking away in happiness. You know, they just want to go on a walk. They're not even, a lot of dogs are desperate for food. Benji wasn't that sort of dog. You know, he was just happy to see you. He was very focused on love and on having a good core around him. And I feel like it's good that we get these off our chest on the podcast, because it's easy to put these feelings away behind us, but it's good to let them out because it unleashes great memories in my head of times that we've had. And I feel like a lot of people watching may also feel similar when they lose a pet. We didn't live with Benji, so it's not like we saw him every single day.
Yeah.
But the memories we had with him, I think it made it even more unique because you'd be away from him and then you'd understand how much you miss the guy.
Yeah.
And the worst thing for me is I never got to really... I was there from the first moment.
Yes.
I convinced my grandma to bring the dogs in, but I wasn't there for the final moment.
No.
And the last time we left our grandparents, I never knew that would be the final time I ever speak to Benji, and now he's in dog heaven and he's looking down on us. Like, it's very, very sad.
And the sad thing is, whenever we would leave, Benji just absolutely adored us, adored our visits, because it came with cuddles and walks and love and attention.
And he brought luck to the Bolton results, I'm telling you that.
And he did. And when we left, he knew what was happening. When we packed our bags and went downstairs, he would skulk off to a corner and he would just put his head down. And I would just go and give him a hug and say, Benji, Thogdog, you know that we always come back. He was 16 when he died. He had a great life. For the last couple of years, I'd say goodbye to Benji and I'd think, is this the last time that I see him? Unfortunately,
I never thought that, because I've never lost anybody that's really close to me. This is the first time it's happened to me, and I don't really know how to react, because I feel like you guys might have lost like someone that's really close to you. It doesn't matter if it's... Well, I lost a really close friend at one stage.
You did, yes.
And that got to me, but this is different, because I've known this dog from the get-go, and year after year, he never changed his perception on anything, and that's the amazing thing about a dog. They're always loving. Even the last time we saw Benji, he was still loving, wanted to go on a walk. Yeah, he couldn't go as far, but he was still happy with life.
He was.
It's only in the last 24 hours, when you decided to have a video call with him last night, that was the final moment where you actually saw a turn, and he was actually like, okay, I've had my innings, I need to call it a day.
Yes.
And do you know what? That's the most beautiful thing, that you can still be 85, 90 years old in dog years and have this great outlook on life. You see Thogden and Thogdad and just think, love it, great to see you, let's go on a walk. No matter, they never changed. It's a very sad day, a very sad way to start the podcast. Let me know in the comments, guys, if you've had to deal with something similar.
And I know people
But always speak about it with your loved ones and your close ones. And even if you can't, leave a comment in this video and let it out, because it's so important to release your feelings, or they stay locked inside and they affect you in life.
They do, Theo. And Thogdog, of course, was a public figure, because we set up a Thogdog Instagram account that got 9,000 or 10,000 followers. So people have been DMing me today. So thank you to everyone who have DM'd us today.
People watch the Bolton vlogs and they know how much that dog meant to us.
Yes.
How he'd predict the games, how you'd see my grandma. It's just a way of life, and then sometimes that life stops, and that's just the way we've got to move forward, right? We can't control what happens with our pets, and it's just one of those sad things. You know, life, death, and taxes, they say, and this is just one of them.
This is one of them. So Benji, wherever you are now, we are
definitely
always
in dog heaven.
Thinking of you.
If there's ever a dog that's gone to heaven, it's this one, because he never put a foot wrong. He was like Gary Neville. He was a right back that always gave 9 out of 10 every single week. You know, you never dropped a 2 out of 10.
Right, come on, let's cheer up. Weekly ramble. What are we talking? What are we rambling about today?
The market's going crazy.
Yes.
There's footballers that have called it a day, like Kevin De Bruyne. What do you think about that? I mean,
oh my goodness.
6 Premier League titles.
Do you know what?
Some of the best passes of the ball I think I've ever seen. I remember that one against Stoke City. I couldn't even see that from the second tier. Do you know, when you play football, you understand how difficult it is to read the game on ground level. The way he saw those passes is a joke. I just wanted to appreciate that man as a Premier League footballer. I don't think we'll ever see a better number 10.
Do you know what, Theo? There was so much good to say about Kevin De Bruyne. He was at Manchester City for 10 years, and he's as close as you come to footballing genius as is possible. Now, the stats alone are incredible. Like I said, 10 seasons, he got 70 goals in the Premier League, 118 assists. That's nearly 12 assists every single season. He won 6 Premier Leagues, 5 League Cups, 2 FA Cups, 1 Champions League. But it's about so much more than the trophy cabinet, because that man to me was the consummate, the ultimate professional. He was almost never involved in any sort of scandal, was he?
No scandal. He was the face of Manchester City. He helped them move with the Puma deal. He helped them take Premier League titles. He gave everything for Belgium, every Euros and World Cup. Okay, they might not have won it. But his link-up play with Hazard, when they had incredible runs, he'd always give 100%. As of recent years, Belgium, they've got worse, but that's because the team is changing. I think he's left a dent on football and a way of acting as a footballer, and that's an important thing. Off the pitch, the way he's raised his family, the way the community of Manchester love him. I don't think there's a United fan who hates Kevin De Bruyne.
Yes.
And that is why we'll never forget that man.
Any proper football fan, whether you're Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, Real Madrid, whoever, you respect Kevin De Bruyne, because his footballing brain was about that size. He would see a pass or a move that nobody else, no other players, none of the pundits, none of the fans could see. He was that good. His passing, we've talked about, his playmaking.
I'm going to make it difficult for you here, Dad. How does he compare? Because there's another German attacking midfielder that has also said he's calling it a day with his football club at Bayern Munich. It's Thomas Müller.
Yes.
How does he compare to Kevin De Bruyne? And do you think he had a better career.
I think Muller was an incredible player, Theo. He won a World Cup, didn't he, obviously?
He won something that De Bruyne didn't, but you wouldn't probably see Belgium win a World Cup.
It's a shame, isn't it, that Thomas Muller never played in the Premier League? Because, of course, he played for Bayern Munich and he was sensational. And if I had the stats to hand, his assists, number of assists he's got are absolutely ridiculous. And again, also, I think
we don't credit Bayern, but they win the league every year. You've got to have consistent players on the pitch.
Apart from when Harry Kane came along.
But with Thomas Muller, they had something. And he made... So how would you compare it to Kevin De Bruyne? Do you think as a solo player, De Bruyne was better than Muller?
I would have Kevin De Bruyne on the pitch and Thomas Muller on the bench.
Wow.
But that's
Is that because you're English? Is that the English-German thing?
No, it's not, Theo. It's just look at... Kevin De Bruyne did it. I know Muller won a World Cup, but, a World Cup is a 5-week tournament. Kevin De Bruyne, in the best league in the world, for 10 seasons, was transformational. In terms of that Man City squad over the last 10 years, I would point to Kevin De Bruyne
Sergio
and
Aguero.
Rodri and Aguero. Those, I'm not thinking of a fourth in terms of the best of a very good team.
Otamendi?
No, nowhere near.
Yaya Toure. Come on.
Sensational player. And it's very hard to compare.
David Silva, Thogdad.
Very good player.
You're not...
Kevin De Bruyne above David Silva. Do you disagree?
I just played football with David Silva, and he's one of the nicest guys. But I think De Bruyne had a higher peak. I'm going to say it. And maybe the City fans will roast me.
And also an interesting one, and we should do a video on this sometime, or a full podcast. The best Premier League players of all time. And the names that come to hand, I've already mentioned De Bruyne and Rodri. I would bring in Thierry Henry all day long. I'd bring in Mo Salah of the current crop. And then I'd go for a lot of Man United players from the glory years. Scholes, Giggs, Ferdinand, Schmeichel, possibly even Gary Neville.
Yeah.
And I know people will be laughing at that moment, but in terms of a right back, look at his trophy
Second
cabinet.
mention of the podcast so far, crazy.
Look at his consistency, look at his trophy cabinet. If there's a list of best ever Premier League players and you're looking across the positions, Gary Neville's in that list.
Yeah. Is he your favourite pundit? What do you think of the pundits that we get on offer on Sky Sports and BT Sport?
I think Gary Neville takes punditry to the next level.
Really?
I think he's brilliant, and I could listen to him all day.
You actually enjoy? I
do. I know there's this divide between the mainstream media and social media and something, but I love listening to particularly Gary Neville. Yeah.
It's funny because whenever you talk about Roy Keane, I think about when we lived in Altrincham, and we lived there 250 yards up the road, Roy Keane. And he used to, going back to dogs, he used to walk his dog past our front lawn every day, head down. He's not looking up and saying hello to his neighbours. That's the way he was. He was very kind of, right, I'm going in that direction, focused. He's not one for the sort of pleasantries, you know what I mean? He's not a people person.
Who I remember when I was a kid, he'd pop round and say hello to everyone.
Yeah,
Van
Nistelrooy.
Outgoing.
Yes. You'd be kicking a football on the front lawn and Van Nistelrooy would smile.
I think I was kicking the ball with his son sometimes.
Do you know what? There was one occasion we went to the park in Hale and Roy Keane sat on a bench. Roy Keane sat there. There's only one bench. So I sit here, pretending I don't know who you are. He's just on his phone. And all of Roy Keane's kids are over there kicking a football. And you came over to me. You haven't got a clue who he is. You're like, Dad, can I play with those kids? I'm like, Theo, just go and ask. And I left Roy Keane alone because he doesn't want us to talk to a stranger in the park. So he was there alone. I was here. You were playing with Roy Keane's kid at football.
I hope I'm better than his son. Listen, this is a shout out to Roy Keane's kids. If you ever want to go play football again, or even sit down and talk on our podcast, we welcome you on. Or Roy himself.
You were probably 3 or 4 years old then, and you were just getting to that point where you saw a football, you suddenly decided, I love this game, and the football was never more than 5 yards from your feet for the next 20 years.
I really picked up football late. People don't know that they think, someone who's obsessed and goes to 100 games a year would have woke up into this world and just adored that one sport. I had passions for the colour red and Ferraris.
Cars.
And cars.
Yeah.
More and earlier in my childhood than I did for football. I don't think it was until about 8 or 9 where I actually started enjoying football, right?
You know what?
It was late. I was a late bloomer. So you actually brought me to a Bolton game because we had season tickets.
Yeah.
And that's what changed me.
Yes.
I felt that love, that up and down. You don't know if you're going to win or lose, or the away fans are going to be saying sacked in the morning.
Yeah.
I think if I got into the sport with a big club, winning every week, I wouldn't enjoy it as much.
No. So you used to, that front lawn I've just described, where Roy Keane used to walk past, and Van Nistelrooy and Nelker, they all lived in the area, Steve Bruce. You would sit on the wall, and there's a road, Stamford Road. You'd look 300 yards down the road, and a car would come up. And you'd look at it, and this is when you were 3 or 4, you'd be like, Volvo, Mercedes.
Yeah.
And this is Bowden, so it was BMW.
Yeah.
You got all the cars right. Occasionally there's like a Suzuki, you're like, Don't know what that is.
Yeah.
9 out of 10, you knew all the cars, and you had a whole bunch of toy cars. And I thought, and I remember talking to Thogmum once, and Thogmum's like, Stephen, I don't think our son likes football. And she knew how sad that would make me be. But one day you just clicked in, I think you were about 4 years old, and you just clicked into football. And you decided overnight, I like this game.
Wow, it's a bit earlier than I expected. But
you decided, I want to kick a ball in the garden.
Yeah.
I want to go and watch Bolton.
I'll never forget, one of my earliest childhood memories is I was begging you every day to come outside, play football with me, play football. We had one goal in the back.
Yes, we did.
And hedges behind it. And I always used to picture in my head that the hedges were fans in stands.
Yes.
And I used to kick the ball into the net, always on my own, just me kicking it in the net. I still have a very good shot to this day.
You do, actually,
when the ball's still.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I used to just kick that hours on end. And one day I convinced you to come outside and play with me.
Yes.
And I'll never forget it. I chipped you from outside the box, sort of equivalent. And I ran over to the hedges and celebrated with the fans. It was really just some hedges that were in the wind. It kind of looked like a bit of movement, like a bit of limbs, And from that moment on, football was life.
It's brilliant. And you know what? I'd call that dad goal kicking. I was probably, oh my goodness, I can't reach it. Maybe it was.
That's BS.
Maybe it was a legitimate goal.
I actually chipped you, and I knew it got you because you're a competitive guy.
Yeah.
You don't like to give in to anything, and you especially don't like losing people younger than you.
Yeah.
And I beat you with that. I think we had a challenge where we'd switch in goal for each other. It was the first time I beat you. I never felt so high in life at that young moment. I was in my prime. I'd done you. And I think the boots were knackered because I was kicking the ball every day.
Yeah.
You had no excuses, Dad. You got mugged off.
Mugged right off.
It made me in love with the sport. So that's a lovely childhood story that made me change my perception of the sport forever. And now I've had opportunities like playing in front of 40,000, 50,000 people. And I've had opportunities where, there's crowds cheering my name.
Yes,
I go to football grounds and everyone wants a picture and everyone's super nice and friendly and travel the world and everybody knows me. And it's like, that's as a kid, when I was kicking a ball and I was picturing that in my head. I always thought, I want to be a footballer, Didn't happen. I honestly feel like I got the second best go.
Yes.
And I love my life. And the fact we can sit down and talk, and this is basically called our job.
Yeah.
And people watch the content on the main channel as well. It's a beautiful thing. So I always say to people don't just go down the old routine. If you're in school and you don't feel like school's right for you, you don't want to sit in a where someone's just lecturing you, then you're not going to enjoy a 9 to 5. So start thinking of other ways to use your energy. Yeah. Because the people that put their energy in the things that they love. I Show Speed is a great example.
Yeah.
He put energy into live streams when he had 2, 3, 4, 5 viewers. He had 100 viewers playing Call of Duty.
Yeah.
People loved him. Then 1,000 viewers. People still loved him. And he kept going. One random mention, a comment of, do you like Ronaldo? He went, Cristiano Ronaldo, sweet. And from that moment on, the football world got behind him. He started traveling the world. He went from thousands to millions. Now he's the only streamer in the world ever to hit 1 million live concurrent viewers, and that was in Indonesia. And he's a great example of someone who just did what he loved, ignored everything else, fixed everything else with time as he started to gain success, money, and things that come when you're successful. YouTube as well played a great role in allowing him to continue. When he had slight hiccups, they stuck by his side and said, we know that this guy's purely doing it on YouTube because YouTube's my day one. Yeah. He never went to Twitch. He never took a deal with Kick. He never saw the big money. He kept going on YouTube because that has the audience. And do you know what? YouTube never cancelled his channel or anything like that. I think it's incredible that they supported him. Yeah. And Speed always, at the end of the day, meant the best for him and his community. And people love to create rumors between creators and Speed or whatever. And obviously I love Messi and I pranked him a few times. And really, that guy is an idol. And I think he's a great example of someone who just did what he loved and kept going at it. And you can look up to people like that.
Do you know what, Theo? I have got nothing but respect for I Show Speed. And I've been lucky enough to meet him a few times. And he's been lovely to me. I don't know if that's because of my generation.
So Speed has a very interesting situation with his dad.
Yes.
He got kicked out his mum's house when he was about 11 years old because he's crazy. Right. He's actually crazy. Didn't have many friends in school because he's nuts. Right, proper nuts, didn't get along, wasn't doing work. I think he got kicked out of school, so they had to find a new school in a new area. So he moved over to Texas, where his dad lives.
Yes.
Left his mum, and it was just him and his dad in the house. Wow. And his dad is very business savvy, young dad. I think he's only 18 years older than Speed.
Right.
And always loved Speed and wanted the best for him. And he helped him a bit like what you did to me.
Right.
Allowed me to do what I want and not force something upon me, and that allowed Speed to just go and do his streaming. When he should have been in school or doing homework, his mum wasn't there to say, no, don't do it. His dad was there and actually understood the potential of this character So I think his dad is quietly one of the most important roles into Speed's success. But that's when he decided, and I think that's quite relatable to you. And it's important having a dad that supports you in life.
Yeah.
I think that's what changed him.
Do you know what? Like I said, I've got nothing but respect for him. I think he's an absolute whirlwind. I think he's an incredible entertainer. And back in the day, you couldn't have had an I Show Speed.
Yeah.
30, 40 years ago, it was impossible. Because to get to where he's got, you needed the backing of Hollywood or a BBC or an ITV. These days, it's all very democratic. So a kid with an iPhone, like you, like I Show Speed, like Danny Aarons, like Stumpag, you can say, right, you know what, I want to create. And with that device,
like
and
what
with
we're
all
doing
the
right
social
now,
media,
with a few iPhones.
yes, you know, there's very little investment in this
create.
setup.
Nobody can stop you, and people will try to put prices on podcast studios. Just ignore all that. This is the same living room where I did my first video.
Yes.
And I'm still here today, back at my parents' flat. The reason I moved out is because I've had a YouTube channel and created an earning
Yes.
and proved to you that I can live on my own. And it all starts in your bedroom or your living room, whatever, and it still stays here. And that's the most important thing. I think everybody that subscribed to me will agree.
Yes.
We are about originality. We
Yes.
don't change.
No.
You know?
No.
Things might change in our life, but this doesn't. We're still having a father and son conversation. I think Speed as well. He's the same guy. That guy don't change.
Well, Theo,
he still does live streams.
An important word in this whole game is authenticity. And the thing about Speed, I hear people say, no, he's making it up. He's just found a winning formula and he's just acting. No, he's not. And I always think of something that happened a few weeks ago. We were with Speed and others in Qatar, and I want to describe the scene, Theo. So we're having a dinner, a formal dinner.
Suit and tie.
Suit and tie. Arsene Wenger's over there. Pochettino, Thierry Henry's in there. We're sat next to Tim
Pirlo was
Cahill.
looking fly.
Yeah, Pirlo was there. David Silva. I could go on. There's a lot more names who are there. It's in this Arabic palace, absolutely gorgeous.
Longest table you'll ever see.
The longest table you'd ever seen. The best meal I've ever had in my life, catered for by Mr. Nobu himself.
He was there.
Mr.
Nobu was there.
Right. So everyone sat down. Picture the scene. You know, Pochettino, he's eating his sushi and he's talking to Arsene Wenger. There's one person who decides, you know what? I'm turning up in a Man United tracksuit, and you have to guess who this is. And during the meal, right, we had chopsticks. He decides, right, he's playing the chopsticks.
There's like some drum and bass music in the back, like
some
quiet.
music on, and one person is stood up doing his own thing. One person is like, no, I don't want to sit down and eat sushi. I want to use these chopsticks as drumsticks, and I want to dance, and I want to sing in my Man United tracksuit. That was I Show Speed.
And that's all off camera.
That, for me, that's off camera.
Yeah.
That was not on camera. That wasn't an act. That is how I Show Speed is. It's just being himself. And this is an important lesson for you, for your generation, for anyone. Just be yourself. And don't be afraid to be yourself. And if you're a creator, don't feel that you have to create what Thogden's done or what I Show Speed is. In fact, that's the wrong thing to do.
Do your own thing.
If you're a creator, do your own thing.
Do what feels right.
Yes.
And be original. But he's been on some controversy recently because in China, there's a lot of rumors. I don't know if you watch the news outlets on TikTok, but they're saying that he's potentially a Chinese spy. Or paid by the Chinese government. And he's been promoting, I think, cars, I believe it's BYD, on a lot of the streaming services, showing its power and speed. And people are worried that the Chinese government are funding this to show Europe and America the power of the technology and the Chinese companies and how things are so much more advanced over there on what is the biggest personality in the world right now channel.
Do you know what? I think so many of these things are fake news. As
You
Donald
don't think
Trump
it's
would
real?
say.
You don't think he's been paid
I don't
a penny?
think he's a Chinese
He's constantly
spy.
talking about...
I don't think it... Look, okay.
I love Speed, and I don't mind if he's taking a deal with a Chinese car company.
So what? So what? Absolutely, Theo. That's a commercial thing. And the thing about YouTube, you put content out there and it's free.
Yeah.
So you do deals. I mean, this week I've had to sort of shake my head because we did a little paid promotion for Visit Saudi. Yeah, and we didn't hide it.
We got cooked for that, Dan.
And well, we got cooked by the mainstream media, by the Daily Mail. I could talk about the Daily Mail and its founder, the Telegraph, I think, the Times. They all went after us because we'd done a little paid promotion for Visit Saudi. So what? So what? I mean, only one person DM'd me saying, oh, that's sports washing. Everyone else kind of accepted it because there's the mainstream media here and then there's your generation who are just like, well, yeah, that's... no big deal.
Listen, at the end of the day, I've been to Saudi Arabia many times. I now have friends there. I've watched football there. From the Spanish Super Cup, one of the best El Clasicos this year. They've always been hospitable. They've invited me around for dinner with their families and people have been very welcoming. And all I'd say is to anyone that doesn't agree with what I do, go there, travel and visit and have your own experiences. And I'm not being paid to say this, I must add. They have the World Cup going there. They're going to build a new city, the Line.
Yes.
They've got incredible ski resorts coming in the mountains, but then the most beautiful beach resorts down the bottom. I do think by 2030, half the people in the UK will actually be going on, whilst on right now on holiday to Spain, Italy. I think we'll start to be talking about Jeddah. I would say I'm early to it because I've traveled there and I see the potential. I've been to the beaches there, they're beautiful, and everything about it is just amazing. Even the culture and the food. When I was in Morocco during Ramadan, I fast with them.
Yes.
It's all about respecting local culture.
Yeah.
And I feel like the English overall are very good at that. When we go to new places, we are respectful as a whole to new cultures. So I'd suggest traveling. People want to have their opinions, and that is absolutely fine.
What I would say about the Middle East is don't judge it. What I would say about anywhere in the world, Theo, don't judge it on the government.
By the way,
you wouldn't
on the
want...
note of this, fasting is bloody difficult.
Yes.
I don't know how Muslims do it for a whole month.
Yes.
I did it for one day when I went round for iftar at the end of the day, and food was incredible.
Yes.
I love myself some Middle Eastern food, you know, with the tagine rice and you know, incredible beef, succulent beef. I mean, I'm sorry, you don't eat meat. People don't really know that, but this diet wouldn't be for you.
But my point being, the point that I'm going to make, people like to judge a country based upon the government. Now, would anyone judge Britain based upon Keir Starmer or Liz Truss or Boris Johnson? I hope not. Judge us based upon who we are, based upon the people, the culture. That's what I want.
Tariffs have come in.
Oh my goodness.
Our last video on tariffs got more views than anything football based. Yeah. And we're meant to be a football channel.
It's an amazing thing, Theo. This podcast, when we did the first one last week, I didn't even know it would be a podcast on Spotify. Now, people won't believe that.
Yeah.
I just thought, okay, we're going to film a few clips.
A shout out to anybody that is watching on Spotify, but if you aren't, please go leave a review.
Yes.
The reviews basically pushes up the search bar, and it allows even Spotify themselves to know that we're on the platform. So if you're listening on there and you're on your morning commute or whatever, please leave a 5-star review. It would mean the world to us, and we're just trying to make this a full-time thing. Just support us, it's completely free.
Yeah.
But going back to what you're saying, Dad.
Yes.
We had a viral clip on tariffs. People really appreciate your info. You speak very passionate about free trade, but there won't be much free trade now. China has hit tariffs, the same percentage, back on the US,
yes,
which is added to what they already had on there. Basically now there's going to be no trade between China and the US. It's not economically possible anymore for companies between the two of them. So they've created this kind of hatred on a political level. This is why obviously a lot of things is happening with speed, you know, getting out of proportion. But what's going to happen now to the world, Dad? The tariffs have hit. Is this the end of the world?
It's not the end of the world. The honest answer to that question is nobody knows, because nobody has a crystal ball. How will the markets react this week? It's Sunday today. How will they react on Monday morning? This will probably go out on Monday.
So after this podcast goes out, you will see how the markets react. And when we say markets, we're talking S&P 500, the biggest 500 companies in the world, which mainly, I'd say like 75% are in America. And then across the board, you've got the exchange rate of the dollar and the pound. So this is what we're talking about when we say market. What will happen next week, Dad? Is everything going to crash? It seems like crypto's down, stocks are down. What's up? What is up?
There's already been a correction of over 10%, which is a very serious thing. I think what the market dislikes the most, Theo...
Correction means down, by the way. It means down.
Yeah, and by 10%. What the market likes the least, Theo, is not so much the tariffs alone, it's the uncertainty.
I'm uncertain. I'm asking you, what should I do?
No, listen. Business people hate uncertainty. Okay. So when you're running a business and planning what to make and where to sell it, like Land Rover have this week said, we're not going to ship any more cars.
What?
We're not going to ship any more cars at the moment to America because we don't know what the hell is going on. So we don't know whether these Range Rovers and Land Rovers, will it be a 25% tariff or not? Will the cars be sent back? Will people buy them? How do we price them? Uncertainty is the problem. What I was hoping for this weekend was a bit of certainty. It hasn't happened. If I had to predict it, this week could be pretty bad.
Oh, more corrections, more crosses.
There could be more correction. What will not happen, the markets will not go down to zero. I've been someone, most people know me as your dad, the guy who sort of picks up a beer and says that tastes like promotion, but I've actually worked in finance for over 30 years. And the thing about these corrections and these slumps, I've seen a lot of them in the past. Every 10 years or so, there is a really bad situation where the stock markets all over the world get tanked. I'm just going to say, actually, in some ways, don't panic. The world will not end. But at the moment, you've got such incredible uncertainty because America for so long was pretty much into free trade. And what it's doing now is putting up barriers. And the best example of a country that puts up barriers, massive barriers, is communist North Korea. Now, America in some ways in the last few days is acting like North Korea.
What?
It's protectionism, isn't it? It's saying, put up the barriers, massive tariffs. We don't want to deal with the world. We want to be isolationist.
They've got the World Cup coming.
Theo.
Club World Cup. They're trying to be together.
Do you know what? Let me sort of play devil's advocate. Some of what Donald Trump has been doing has been good. Okay, and I'm going to give you some examples of this. He's brought something in called Doge. That is the Department of Governmental Efficiency. And he's put Elon Musk, his mate, in charge of it. Now, what that's trying to do...
Wait, I thought Doge was just a meme coin. I thought it was a crypto that goes up and down. What is Doge?
It's that as well, the Department of Governmental Efficiency. So Trump has said we're going to have a new government department, and it's pretty much Elon Musk and a bunch of his tech mates. What they're doing, they're looking through all the spending by government. You see, American governments, let's say last year, they bring in tax and they spend, but they spend about $2 trillion more than they bring in tax. So that leads to what's called a deficit, which leads to America's debt piling up, right? But it works out because every year the Chinese and others, so America then issues debt, and it's bought by the Chinese and others.
You're lying.
So there's this massive pile of debt underlying the American economy. And if China one day says, we're not going to buy your debt anymore, America would collapse.
No.
So what Trump's trying to do, he's saying, right, Doge, you go out and you're going to cut spending by about $1 trillion.
So if it wasn't for China, America would have collapsed.
In terms of China being the ones that buy the debt, yes. It's almost like...
So now we're in a situation where they have no one to go back on. It could collapse if Elon gets it wrong.
To some extent, Theo, something like the pound. Think about pound sterling, right? The government can print pounds.
Yeah.
They can print pounds, and spend that. If one day the world says, this is the financial world, if they stop buying pound-denominated debt, then our country goes bankrupt. Yeah? And that's happened before. So we've had problems like Russia basically went bankrupt in 1998. People stopped trusting the ruble, and the ruble went from 6 to the dollar to 24 to the dollar in a week. So Russia basically defaulted, went bankrupt temporarily. Now, there's no reason why one day that couldn't happen to the US or to the GBP or to Britain. So what Trump is doing is saying this can't go on forever. We can't just always have these deficits and for this debt to pile up year on, year out. So that's what Doge is all about. Tariffs. What Trump is trying to do is saying, wait a minute, other companies have had tariffs on us for years. We're going to slap tariffs on you and we're going to bring in more tax revenues, and that's going to reduce the deficit. There is some logic to what Trump is doing.
Yeah.
But having said that, the way that it's been handled, the way that you're getting tariffs slapped on countries that only have penguins and no people.
Wait,
that's bonkers.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Trump put tariffs on an island that has no inhabitants.
Just penguins.
So the penguins are waking up for breakfast and they have to pay tariffs.
Honestly, I do not know the way these tariffs have been handled. It's like, oh, I've just met Keir Starmer and actually I quite got on with him. Okay, 10% for you. But I hate the EU. The European Union is trying to destroy us for years. 20% on you. Like I say, the uncertainty. That's what businesses hate. And that's why tomorrow morning the markets might go down further.
So when you see this, Thogdad has predicted the end of the world in the next 7 days, pretty much.
Not quite. The biggest crash in history was probably the 1929 depression. Now, almost nobody's still alive, but
We're not far off
the American economy
Dad.
would just been growing, and then one day fell off a cliff. And then I think it was 1930 when a whole bunch of tariffs were brought in.
Oh, God.
That did not work well. So
don't scare me, Dad.
It's not good how things are at the moment. All I'd say
There's
is...
no one winning here. There's no one winning. This is the problem. It's like having a war because nobody wins.
Yeah. And by the way, I've met people who are like, oh, I'm not worried. I don't own shares. Wrong. Okay. I think 8% of people in this country own shares, which is ridiculously low.
So it's not even double-figure percentage of people that own an investment.
Directly own shares.
Wow.
But of course, almost everyone's got a pension. Ooh. So anyone who's got a private sector pension, I tell you what, you've lost 10% of your wealth, of the value of your pension. About 10% went last week. So it will affect you. If your mum and your dad or you've got a pension, you have been affected.
For people that have ISAs and want to invest or want to make some money, a little side thing, could there be an opportunity on the way?
Yes, there could. And there was one investor once, one very top investor said, you buy shares when there's blood on the streets. And which is very cynical. So when there's been a crash, when prices are coming down like this, at some point, it will be the right time to buy. But it is like catching a falling knife. Yeah. Sorry to use all these cliches. When things are coming down, so the wrong time to buy is when you're at the very top.
When you feel like you should buy.
Yeah. So at some point, there'll be a lot of companies, a lot of stocks that are cheap. I'm not allowed to say which ones. I'm not allowed to give financial advice specific. If I said buy stock X, I'd be breaking the law.
I wouldn't want you to say that because nobody knows if a price will go up or down.
But what everyone should do, if you've got a few quid that you can save, there's something called an ISA, yeah, and you can stick 20 grand a year. Now, most people can't stick 20 grand a year in.
Come on, be the father figure. How should I spend my spare money?
Yeah. Well, if you're someone your age, early 20s, starting a career, got some savings, the very first thing I'd say to you is get on the property ladder.
What?
Is get on the property ladder.
I don't have like just that much cash sitting around to buy a property.
Yeah, well, of course, there's something called a mortgage. So a property, let's say a property is £250,000, yeah, 250,000. You don't have to have 250,000 in savings because who does? Who has that money in savings? What you have to do is find a deposit and then you borrow the rest from a bank. That is something I'd recommend to everyone. You know,
at some point, think about it. Have a goal in your mind.
When you can, if you can be saving 500 or 1,000 a month, whatever you can save, put it away, and look at what the government is giving you. So an ISA, let's talk about an ISA, yeah? You can have a stocks and shares ISA. You can put up to 20 grand a year in there. Whatever profits you made there, no tax.
No way.
No tax. So take advantage of that. But if you get the chance to save up the money for a deposit on a mortgage, get yourself on the property.
So you're telling me, Dad, in my ISA, if my 20k turns to 40k next year because I've invested in some big companies that gradually go up, I hit the jackpot a little, not even jackpot, I shouldn't even mention jackpot, it's more likely than a jackpot.
Yeah.
I make up to 40k, I take it out, put it back in my bank account. You're telling me that that's all tax-free?
Don't take it out, you leave it in there.
What?
So yes, okay, once you take it out, it's a bit of a problem. So you could put in, imagine, let's say you've got a really high paying job in London. Let's say that you can save 20 grand a year. Every year you put 20 grand into your ISA, every single year. Yeah. From the age of like 25, whatever. And you will invest that in stocks and shares. Now, if you get that right, that should grow on average about 10% a year.
Right.
So if you do the maths after 10, 15, 20 years, it might be $1 million plus. I've got a mate who was a trader, and he maxed out his ISA allowance every year, 20 grand in. He's actively trading. And he was so brilliant at trading, that turned into multi-millions. He's not paying a penny in tax.
And this is a very interesting time to talk about ISAs because the markets are going down. Last day the market was open, it went down 5% on average. Could be a good buying opportunity if we catch the falling knife at the right time. I know, it's a crazy thing to say, but it's lining up nicely with what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
So if you have spare cash, instead of putting a football bet on, a massive acca.
Yeah. Look, the way I do very little gambling, occasionally, Theo.
You're very good at it though, Dad.
I'm not bad, actually.
And people actually make money from listening to your predictions. You get a lot of messages.
Yes, and I wouldn't encourage that. You know, we do our Premier League predictions, and you know what? Yesterday, we predicted 5 results. I got 3 of them right.
You killed me.
I got 3 of
I
those
got Brighton
right.
Palace wrong.
I got that wrong.
I got the Villa game wrong.
Arsenal Everton we got right. I got
Everton.
Wolves winning 2-1 right, and I got Aston Villa 2-1 right.
I backed Ipswich, and their keeper decided. You know that those jokes online where it's like when you back a team and then they go and do this. They're 1-0 up. I'm about to take home 3 points, completely different to you.
Yeah.
And then the Ipswich goalie decides to forget where the ball is. We're talking about the Premier League, the best league in the world. Last week we sat here and said the Premier League is falling. Look at that goal. It is falling. I'm not having it. It's like when you know in FPL, when you bring in a transfer and that player decides to just become silly. And I was fuming at the TV. I would have caught you 3 points there. And of course, Wolves ended up winning that 6-pointer and pretty much guarantees the 3 promoted teams to get relegated. So sorry to Ipswich, sorry to Southampton.
Yeah.
And of course.
But my point is, Theo, treat gambling as consumption. In the same way that you'd buy a Starbucks coffee, £3.50, and you drink it, yeah? If you're having a bet, only put on what you can afford to lose.
Yeah.
So you put a couple of quid on. You might think that Wolves are going to win 2-1. Okay, put 2 quid on that. You might, and if you lose, it's just the price of a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. That's what I say. The problem with gambling is that when people get addicted, yeah? And it's the same with drinking. So, I like a beer. Everyone knows I like a beer. I'm famous for doing a beer review.
Yeah.
But when it becomes a problem, this is the thing, Theo. I like a bevy, yeah? I like a bevy, but occasionally I'll do dry January, I'll do 31 days without drinking.
So I think in the UK, around your age, 3 or 4 times a week is quite normal.
Yes.
I think people hearing that from different parts of the world might go, oh, that's crazy.
After Thursday night football, we all love having a couple of drinks. There are occasions where I'd say after football, it's better to have 2 Guinnesses than 2 lime sodas.
Why?
I just enjoy it more. I like the buzz. I'm sorry, I'm not encouraging it. I'm not trying to encourage drinking.
So we're in a world now where I believe it's Gen X is drinking half as much as Gen Z. Gen Z's drinking half as much as the generation before that. Jeremy Clarkson went on Twitter and said, oh, no one's drinking, no one's shagging, no one's doing anything anymore.
I know.
Oh, our culture's finished. What's your honest opinion on the world changing?
It's very interesting. So I have 3 godsons, yeah? And one of them makes a gin and tonic that's like a pint, yeah? He loves a drink. And another godson will only drink water. He's never touched a beer in his life. And another godson is just a very modest drinker. And it's like, so many of the younger generation don't touch alcohol.
Hold on, you have 3 godsons?
3 godsons, yeah.
Bloody hell. Thogdad.
Did you not know that?
Thogdad. I feel like I'm not the son anymore.
I'm the godfather there.
You really are?
I'm the godfather. And I'm in touch with all 3 of them, and they're all great, and they're all very different.
Hell.
But you're right.
You really are a mafia boss.
My generation
here,
when I was growing up in Lancaster in the mid to late 80s, it was all about that Friday night, that Saturday night, and you would smash it.
Wait, I just want to expand on this. Do you ever get messages from like fans just being like, can you be my godfather or?
Nobody has asked, but you should only be a godfather to someone that you know. So in all 3 cases, it's good friends. It's the son of 3 good friends.
Wow.
So
what is the role of a godfather? Just so I know, because there's no real there's no real blood between you and them. So what do you do? When do you step in?
Traditionally, if you go back far enough, it was a very serious thing. When people lived, when people died in the 30s and 40s, a godfather would be expected, if the parents died, to take that son in or the daughter and treat them like their son or daughter.
You're lying.
That's the history of it. These days, it's more ceremonial. So these days, you go to a christening. All right, there's godfather, godmother, godfather, and often they don't bother. They might buy a present at Christmas.
Yeah.
For me, the birthday and the Christmas, I'll send them a little check or something.
So I'm gonna put pressure on you here.
Yeah.
If there was a situation where they needed help or they needed someone to look after them, would you bring them home? Hey Theo, here's your new brother.
I think the answer is yes. I take it very seriously because I think the moment you step into that church, and there's a ceremony and you're in a church and you're making some commitment, I think you should take that seriously. Now, in all 3 cases where I'm a godfather, it doesn't go much beyond presents, but I'm in touch with all 3 by WhatsApp. They're all 3 of them are between sort of 20 and 24.
Wow.
So they're now young people. They're your age.
You always talk about adoption. Would you adopt a kid from, there's in China, they prefer having boys than girls because boys bring money to the family, etc. You were once talking about adopting a Chinese girl.
I hate the fact that there are children who are not wanted. I think that's the saddest thing. If you could talk about what are the saddest things on earth, it's a child who either doesn't have one or both parents or has parents that really shouldn't be parents. There are some bad parents out there, and it's one of the saddest things in the world. And I've had people DM me and say, look, so people watch us, and I've had people write to me and said, oh my God, I wish I had that relationship. Either my dad has died or he's not much of a dad.
Wow.
And that is when you get those messages, it's the saddest thing in the world. So I think there was a time, Thogmum and I always thought we'd have more than 2 kids. And there was a time where we thought about, should we? I think now that we're in our mid-50s, it's too late. Because imagine if we adopted a kid now,
Be full on.
It'd be full on. It's a young person's game. I think the time to have
kids... There goes
kids...
Prem predictions.
I think, look, the time to have kids is... Oh, by the way, shout out to Danny Aarons, whose kid was born a few days ago.
Amazing.
So
very young.
Congratulations, Danny.
Yeah, congratulations.
Danny's young, and Danny said that, and I was chatting to his mum and dad, and they admit that. Great time to have kids is like late 20s, early 30s.
So am I allowed to have kids as young as Danny Aarons?
You are a young adult and you have to make your decision. I
do not have the maturity. Anyway,
do you know what?
I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
I can't even control my editor right now.
Yeah. Yeah. No one can control Cass.
I'd be the worst dad ever. I really applaud Danny for what he's doing. He's got in a boxing ring against an ex-footballer, an athlete.
Yeah.
And now he's creating so many side quests with him in Tennessee. So big up.
Having a child should be the biggest commitment of your life.
Yeah.
Because life changes at that point. Because you are a father to that kid, not just, in those cute years when they're a little kid and you can show them off on this. No, you're a father to that child forever. So like if you ring me, like you text me like at 1 o'clock last night saying, oh, there's been a problem. And I thought, oh my God, what problem? Because I'd just been speaking to my mum about my dog's about to die.
Oh my God.
And you text me saying, Dad, there's a real problem. Can you call me? And I'm, oh my God, what's Theo? Yeah. And I called you, we're like, Dad, yeah, the filming we did yesterday, it didn't quite work out. I'm like, thank God for that.
Oh, you didn't say that on the phone?
Yeah, I thought, oh my God, if that's a problem, good.
Yeah.
So what?
It was at about midnight.
Yeah.
I just come back from a shocker of a night out, and that just ruined my whole day.
And here we are.
And it's also my birthday week as well.
I know it is. But my
went
point,
to the wrong gaff.
Being a father, being a mother, it's the biggest commitment you'll ever do. And what should happen is that child should have two parents. If the child doesn't have two parents, and of course usually that's a mother and father, but these days it could be two mothers, two fathers, I accept that. A child needs two loving parents.
Yeah.
It's one of the most important things in life. Forget the money thing, two loving parents from age 0, hopefully forever. Yeah, and that's a very traditional thing.
Boys my age, they grow up and all they think about is like financial gain, like get a good job, earn money. The moment that switches to children, the narrative goes from like gaining money, going out, having a good time with the boys, to spreading love into other people.
It should.
So you actually grow as a human.
Yeah.
And that's what separates me to you.
Yes.
And understanding that, the younger, the better.
Yeah.
Because becoming a dad or a mum is the most beautiful, but also the most life-changing experience you will ever have. And I've never done it. And I want to feel right when it happens.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's no disrespect to Danny, but I don't think his maturity is beyond me. I will admit that. If he's willing to take on the sacrifice. Yeah. And he's a year younger than me, which is incredible.
Everyone's different. But that moment when your first child is born, and it's okay when you're in the hospital because the midwives and the nurses, they're great. They're telling you what to do, They're telling you. And then after a couple of days, you got your Moses basket and you put your little baby and your little precious, and you're picking up this Moses basket. You're going to the car and you've got your special car seat. That's the moment you're like, oh my goodness, I've not been on a course for this. No one's prepared me from the moment you pick up the Moses basket with this precious little bundle of humanity. And get in your car, get in your Range Rover or whatever you've got.
Bloody hell, I hope it's a Range Rover.
Yeah.
What, you had one?
Yeah, I did,
You had to mention that.
Yeah. But that's the moment you think, oh my God, because, you can buy books. You can buy books about being a parent, but I tell you what, you're not going to read them. It's all about you just get on with it, and you're calling up maybe your mum and saying, Mum, what do I do? The price of a child.
David.
Yeah, and occasionally there's an article in the newspapers about once a year. The price of a child, it's like £250,000 or more.
So you're telling me it goes Range Rover, Thoggy as a baby, BMW X5.
In terms of,
I'll take it. I'll take silver.
In terms of reliability, the X5 was number one.
Amazing.
But brilliant. No, joking apart, it's it is the most incredible thing. But not everyone should be a parent. There are some bad parents. And going back to your original question, would we adopt? The answer was absolutely yes. Probably, it's gone now.
Yeah. But you admire people that do it.
I think it's a wonderful, selfless thing. You get some people who say, I want a child, and it must biologically be my child and my wife and my partner's child.
Yeah.
But there are some instances where, obviously, an all-male couple, an all-female couple, that can't be the case.
Yeah.
Or a couple who are one or both are infertile. I think adopting a kid, being parents to that kid, I think it's one of the most wonderful things you could do.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to football, because of course we're speaking about the sport that we know and love. We've had some deep conversations today. I did not expect it to go on off of these tangents, but I hope you guys enjoy it.
It's been emotional, hasn't it?
It has been emotional. I mean, I never thought we'd see tears on this channel, what we have, but the Galatasaray manager saw tears.
Yeah.
Not for something so affectionate or sad.
Yeah.
He got a little push from Jose Mourinho. Gala Fener, big derby in Istanbul. Jose Mourinho always takes the limelight. But for once, personally, I'm not blaming him. What was Buruk doing?
Buruk, Theo. I mean, honestly, I watched that and I just laughed because, that man Buruk has embarrassed himself. He's embarrassed Galatasaray Football Club. He's embarrassed Turkish football and he's embarrassed Turkey. Now, I've got Turkish friends. I did a lot of work down in Istanbul at one point, and those Turkish friends, the male friends, have got this sort of masculinity, So they're very old school.
So if someone, basically what Jose did, he sort of did a little push there.
And what did Burke do?
Yeah, and he fell on the floor like he'd been, like there was a sniper in the stands.
Terrible.
The Turkish lads I know would have turned around and give Mourinho a slap. And you know what?
When you're a manager,
I can't condone that, Theo, but that's old school, and that's what you do.
Do you know what, Dad?
You don't go writhing on the floor like a baby.
When you watch me play football, I'd swig my hair and you go, stop doing that.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine what you'd do if I went down diving like that.
If I was watching you in Sunday League and you did anything like that, I'd be shouting at you.
You'd actually come and pick me up, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And you remember when you started playing football on a Thursday night, age about 13, 14, if there was a player missing, you play. One or two of the lads would give you an elbow or a push.
And I was weaker because I was later to a growth spurt.
And the first time it happened, you sort of looked at me, expecting me to defend you. I'm like, well, Theo, get up, do it back.
Yeah.
So I know James is maybe twice your age, but if he elbows you, you elbow him back. If he pushes you, you push him back.
Deal with it on the pitch.
Because it's on the pitch. I'm not gonna look after you unless someone took a swipe at you.
Yeah.
That's different. Then
But didn't Jose pretty much do that? Swiped him.
Pushed his nose.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Burke was embarrassing there. Galatasaray released a statement, but I think the most important thing there is as a manager, you are the face of the club. You need to be an idol to the academy.
Yeah.
You need to be the man that makes the right decisions when every pressure is there. You make the call, and you're calm. You're like James Bond, That's what you want. And that guy, you get a little of this and you go down on the floor like a player.
Utterly pathetic.
That is embarrassing. And if that happened in the Premier League, I remember Van Gaal once did it.
Yeah.
And he got rinsed in the newspapers, rightly so.
Yes.
And he even admitted he shouldn't have done that. I'm not sure Burke has had the same response. I do not want to see that in the Premier League. I don't want to see that in football in general. And I hope Galatasaray explain that to him. I know he's the manager and he's in a very important role, but the president's got to tell him, come on, mate, there's no need for that.
Yeah, and I know people would say Jose's wrong. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. Of course you shouldn't. But in the heat of battle, you might touch someone's nose.
Yeah.
But come on.
It's a big game, but there's no need to act like that. Well, there's been lots of things happening. There's Champions League next week. Are you excited for Arsenal, Real Madrid? Rudiger is out for Real Madrid, but Gabriel's out for Arsenal. Saka's, here and there.
Yeah.
You saw him in the Fulham game he had. Apparently, I want to ask you about this, Dad.
Yeah.
I heard Bukayo Saka got the Messi treatment. Let me explain.
Yes.
The game that you were at, something happened, and this very rarely happens in the Premier League.
Right.
Where a player gets off from the bench and gets ready to warm up on the sidelines.
Yes.
He's not even getting subbed on. And the crowd go and celebrate like it's a goal.
Yes.
That's what happened at Arsenal Fulham when Bukayo Saka just got out to warm up for the first time. They saw him run again. When I think of Arsenal, I think of Saka. Is that true? Did that happen?
That happened. Now, I was sat with a couple of friends, Henry, who's got Arsenal season tickets, and Mike, who's my American friend. So I was explaining soccer to an American guy. So the whole way through, I'm talking about Declan Rice this and Gabriel and that injury, why it's important. I'm just explaining football. And the guy on my left, who's like a traditional Arsenal fan, he was like, what the hell's going on over here? Anyway, yes, at one point I heard this cheering and some of the fans even got up, standing ovation. So I immediately recognised what was going on.
We all remember
Saka
that video.
was warming up.
We all remember that video where Messi came up to train and they celebrated like it was a goal.
Yeah.
And they put Muchachos music behind it. Someone needs to find the clip of Saka when he did that, because that is heroic. He's left a dent on English football. He's left a dent on Arsenal Football Club. And you were there for a moment. It's always nice to see a player come back to what they do so well.
Yeah.
So well done. Saka is the Messi of North London.
But the story of that game was Saka scoring on his return.
Yeah.
But
what was that like? Did you cheer?
Of course, I'm clapping. Of course,
Are you happy?
I like Arsenal. It's actually probably our closest Premier League club, isn't it, Arsenal? It is the closest ground.
In terms of distance, not in terms of liking.
No.
Let's get that right.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of Arsenal friends. If they win, they're all in my face. If they lose, that 5-1 Arsenal game this season when Bolton lost in the Cup, it was a long day for me.
Yes.
We can't enjoy Arsenal winning too much.
No.
But moments like that, Saka will bring home the World Cup in the USA. And I'm happy he's back on the football pitch.
Yeah, but the big story for me of that game was Gabriel getting injured. And that is the difference. Over 3 hours, I'm sorry, but Arsenal will not be beating Real Madrid. Really? Over 3 hours.
So Arsenal will never win a Champions League?
They won't this year.
With Arteta, will they ever win? Have they even got a shot at it with Arteta?
They have a shot.
Do you think that, I'll ask you a question, the best 11 of Arsenal, Gabriel, Saka, Havertz, the perfect midfield fit, having all the fullbacks, having all the options. The best 11 that got Arsenal to 95 Premier League points. What was it? Only a few points off Man City last year.
Yes.
Could they have a shot at home to Real Madrid?
Well, it is a cup competition. So there is that element of surprise. If Real Madrid don't turn up, I could see the first leg being a draw.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's closer than I expect.
At the Emirates, I could see it being a draw, but
like the Bayern game that you went to.
Yes, but go to Madrid, and I just think Madrid. I think over 3 hours, Madrid win by 1 to 2 goals.
What about Villa then? Because they are high flying. They seem to win every week under Unai Emery. I actually look at their 11 and think, well, this is better than some of the traditional top 6 teams.
I think Aston Villa are really creating something. So you look at the teams that have surprised in the last couple of seasons, and that would include Nottingham Forest this season. It would include Bournemouth for a while. It would include Villa, of course it would, because they've come from the lower division. I think Villa. You look at Asensio. If you could keep hold of players like Asensio and Morgan Rogers and Rashford.
Yeah.
You know, that quality of player, and Donny Marlon, I think, is there. And
absolutely.
That's the
Ian
quality.
Maatsen.
Yes.
That's a Dortmund Champions League final.
If you take those
players
and add, and instead of just, losing them to loans or selling them, I think if you can add to that, you've got a team that could be in the top 4 for a long time.
And a top European manager who's not afraid to go to Parc des Princes and come away with a win.
Yes.
Will they beat PSG? Over 2 legs.
Will they beat PSG? I bumped into a Villa fan down here 2 days ago, and he said PSG are going to win the whole Champions League.
What?
So that's a Villa fan. I think, again, Villa can beat PSG, but I think PSG will win on this occasion.
Wow. So you think they can go all the way? Parisians, this is what they've always been after.
You look at Aston Villa.
Years of failure.
And you say, what a brilliant season they're having. They're still in the FA Cup, aren't they? Semi-final of the FA Cup.
Absolutely, they're running the show.
They're still in the Champions League. They can still qualify top 5 for the Champions League next season. What a brilliant season. What a great bunch of players. What a great manager. Great fans as well. So whatever happens against PSG, Villa have had a great season.
Champions League this year is great.
It is.
There's so many twists and turns. It could even be a Classico Champions League final.
Yes.
I said this last episode, but I'm done with the Premier League. I'm bored of it. I know we do predictions. I'm going a bit wild on predictions because I think things are going to happen out of the ordinary of the next few weeks because a lot of it is now confirmed. The bottom 3, the league winners. Okay, European positions are up for grabs right now, but I think that could change in a few weeks as well.
Yes.
So there's a lot to change that. Did you see, we're in the month of April. Tomorrow's my birthday. When this episode comes out, it will be my birthday. There was an interesting April Fool's prank on the King of Hungary right now, Dominik Szoboszlai.
Do you know what that reminds? It's incredible, by the way. You've got to watch it. That statue, when it was unveiled, it reminded me of the Cristiano statue.
It was
in Madeira.
Like it. He walks in. I think it's a T-Mobile ad. Hungary national team have told him you've got to put a few hours in for media.
Yeah.
He walks in, you're getting a statue, it's going to go by the Hungary national team stadium. That's a beautiful thing. For the very first time, they unveil it, and it's got like mobile phones. They're claiming it's contemporary art.
I know.
That would kind of win you over, thinking it might be true.
And you can see the moment where he's just like, his face drops, and he's like, that's horrible.
I know, and then they asked him to
go
get photos.
Yeah.
And you know that's going everywhere.
And I like the best bit when they're like, could you just lean your head on its shoulder? He's like, no. Could you just give it a little kiss? No. And then they're like, can we come and chat? And he's just like, it's horrible. I
love when they pan to the other room going, now make him do this.
I know.
And they all go crazy.
And they show that mock-up of an enormous statue. And all the merch. Got all the merch.
April Fools, when it comes around, there's always someone who smashes it. I think the April of Fools, we should do this, an April Fools award.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods, nominee. He said he's coming back for the Masters. He's been in the what's it called, micro chamber or something?
It's some sort of
gives you back years.
Yeah, some sort of chamber.
Like in the films where you go in that chamber.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched the recent movie In Space where they go in the chamber and a twin pops out.
Yeah.
But Tiger Woods coming back would have been emotional for golfers. But I think April Fool's Award, we can agree, Dominik Szoboszlai prank.
Szoboszlai,
If you disagree, tell us in the comments. I don't think you'll find a better April Fool's prank than that.
Yeah.
It's nearly as good as when I made the old video of like, I'm quitting YouTube. 10 YouTubers every year do that.
I saw, and this is very Lancaster, so I don't know if you might cut this out, but there's something called the Ashton Memorial in Lancaster. There's this famous kind of, it's almost like, it's the Taj Mahal of the North, in Lancaster. You see it from the M6. And you see in Lancaster, people complain there's too much student accommodation. So they ran a story locally that this Ashton Memorial was turned into student accommodation. So they built student accommodation all around it. And that's very specific to Lancaster, but it made me laugh.
It would go viral on TikTok, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And that is why it's interesting time right now. The deadline is coming. Mr. Beast has put together a bunch of investors. Ooh. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank wants it. The OnlyFans owner wants it.
Yeah.
Even Amazon. Jeff Bezos wants it, and he wants to connect TikTok Shop to Amazon Prime. Imagine that. That's a great idea.
Wow.
Just give us a prediction, Dad. You're the prediction king. Name one Will it be Kevin O'Leary? Will it be Bezos? Who will claim TikTok?
I have absolutely no idea.
Come on, give us one.
I have no inside track. I mean, it is fascinating, you know, how things like TikTok have gone from nothing in the last few years. So it obviously is a very valuable asset. I'm fascinated to know how many billions you'd have to pay the Chinese to buy it.
They actually emailed me when they were first starting. They changed around from a different name and they were like, we're trying to get more creators on TikTok. Like, you should join us. I was like, I get these emails all the time.
You could have been
a year later.
You could have been a billionaire.
Millions and billions. Listen, crazy time. But I would like to see Mr. Beast and his group of investors take it over, because he is the man that's carving the next. Well, he's the face of YouTube and creators and doing amazing things from just having a YouTube channel, and very proud of what he's done. So, Mr. Beast, go and win that with your investors. Go and take it.
Yeah.
You know, show TikTok. You know, make it a better place. We need new and great mindsets in these big companies.
Yeah.
And of course, the reason TikTok is selling it is because they don't want a Chinese company having control of one of the biggest social media platforms in America and Europe, because that data goes back to China. That's the reason they have to sell, because they're going to ban it if not. JD Vance has said no more TikTok.
What is important, Theo, is that TikTok is separate to Instagram, is separate to Facebook, that they're all separate.
How do you rank them? How do you rank all social medias? What gets first in Thogdad's tier?
In terms of what I like, number one is Instagram.
Why?
I think
over YouTube. YouTube's made me, Dad.
YouTube. YouTube. If you're counting that as well, I was thinking of Twitter being bottom. X because it's
bottom
toxic.
tier. Okay.
Certainly, football Twitter. It's just toxic. Why would you? There's a lot of very sad, lonely people on there.
Yeah, I don't spend any time on X. I only look at it for news. I don't really spend much time on.
Oh yeah, it is good for news. It is good for news. If something's breaking, you go on X.
Good on financial
Twitter.
Twitter.
It in. Financial Twitter is quite nice, because it's an older group who are swapping ideas about shares and what have you.
So don't write off X.
Yeah.
All combined, it can make you a lot of money if you play your cards right.
Right, can it? Yeah. I didn't know that.
And YouTube made me, so we got to put YouTube first.
Okay, YouTube
second place, Instagram.
Yes, I'd say YouTube first for that reason.
Instagram second.
And by the way, even before you were a YouTuber, I would watch YouTube for like old videos.
Right.
You know, I like music from the 80s and 90s.
YouTube is a free place to learn anything in the world.
Yeah.
To edit, tutorials, to cook, to clean, to buy properties, to start a business in 24 hours. It's everything.
When your car goes wrong, if something wrong with the Mini, you type in Mini Cooper problem with this, and someone's made a video on it.
I know.
And that is unheard of. Back in the day, you'd have to get out the instruction manual, which is probably written in Chinese or something, and work it out. These days, you go on YouTube. Yeah, YouTube number one. Instagram number two.
Instagram's great at keeping up with friends all the time.
You know, I'm very old school. No, I do like financial Twitter.
So what's getting third place? What's getting bronze? Are we saying Facebook deserves it? I think it's a bit gone now,
Facebook is a bit gone, but it's a great way of keeping in touch with people who are sort of lower family, if you know what I mean.
I think people will be screaming at the screens right now saying TikTok's got to get that bronze. But I don't like TikTok.
It's not my generation.
It's not my generation.
No, it's true.
It's not even mine.
No.
You know, I'm turning 24 the day this comes out.
Yeah.
I do not watch TikTok. I watch IG Reels.
Yes.
And people give me hate for that because, how can you say you don't like TikTok on your For You page? If you watch IG Reels, same thing. Nah, slightly different, in my opinion. Yeah. And IG, I also look at the pages to see how everybody's doing. So I don't need TikTok because I have IG. Therefore, I'm going to put X in third.
Ooh.
Great at keeping up with current affairs.
Yeah, okay.
It's quicker than the news.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm going, final bid, you agree? We're going to shake it.
I'm just going to agree with you now. You've turned me round. Football Twitter is toxic, but financial Twitter is good. It's great for the news, number three.
So that's why TikTok needs change, and Mr. Beast can change it.
Yes.
There you go. We're going to end this with one more news story. Donald Trump, we speak about him a lot, has integrated a new idea. You can go to the US.
Yeah.
You can get a gold card. You can get an opportunity to a good job.
Yeah.
And a place to live. But it's going to cost you $5 million. $5 million is the price for a gold card.
Yeah.
Now, US has clapped back and said, can we sell ours for $5 million? And that's not the deal.
Really?
So is that a good idea from Donald Trump?
I think it is. I think it is. I think if you're a country, what you want to do is bring in successful, wealthy people,
good
entrepreneurs, minds. People with good minds, people with money, They'll come to your country with their ideas, with their entrepreneurship, with their innovation, also with their funds, so they can take that idea and set up a company. It's a great idea. This is a problem we've got in the UK, and we also had it back in the 70s, the brain drain.
Yeah.
So my Uncle Tony had a great idea to do with biotech, but tax rates in the UK in the 70s were like 98%, highest rate. Yeah.
What?
He went to the States. He went to Massachusetts with his idea and had a great life. They took him seriously, set up companies, what have you.
Incredible.
And what is the problem at the moment with the UK? A lot of the brightest, wealthiest entrepreneurs are leaving the country. Where are they going? Into the US, Canada, Australia, Saudi.
I think
they're going to
there's a
the
statistic
UAE.
that says 100 millionaires are leaving the UK every week.
Yeah.
Dad. So people with 7 figures value, net worth plus, are leaving the UK. Why are they not staying? The UK is where they make the money.
Do you know why they're not staying? The tax they pay is too high. Because...
But isn't Gary Stevenson saying we need to tax the rich more? He went down and did a Diary CEO podcast.
Yeah.
And he got cooked by Daniel Priestley.
Yes.
An actual multi-millionaire.
Yes.
Who runs several tech businesses. Canadian, lives in the UK, pays UK tax. And some of his arguments put Gary Stevenson with unresponsive replies. They weren't even adding up.
If you, for example, there's something called a wealth tax, it would be pretty much aimed at anyone with wealth. So let's say you're worth 10 million, but a lot of that 10 million might be a house up in Hampstead or something, yeah? So let's say you're going to charge every year 10% wealth tax. What a great idea. Soak the rich, as they say. So that person would be expected to pay $1 million every year. Yeah, let's do that. You know what's going to happen?
What?
They sell their house, they transfer all the funds to Switzerland or the States or Dubai, and they leave. And we're left with one less person who pays tax, who consumes, who buys stuff, who generates wealth. You might be someone who sort of looks down and thinks, oh, the rich, looks down at the rich because they have things too easy. But you need those people in your country. Like I said, they set up the companies, they build the factories.
The billionaires combined in this country pay over 50% of the taxes.
They do.
Right, I mean, I think we've spoken about enough. I think we've gone on for much longer than I expected today. It's been an amazing podcast from the get-go. A lot more finance than I thought, but that's just the way the world's moving, and it's good to be intact with it. We're going to end this back on the football terms because we like to end our episodes with a streets won't forget baller. Now,
oh my goodness.
Now, before we say,
yes,
we start this podcast in memory of the loving dog Benji.
Yes.
And what Benji means to me is Bolton Wanderers.
Yes.
When we go to Lancaster, stay with my grandma, we watch Bolton.
Yes.
So let's think of a Bolton legend as a streets won't forget player.
Well,
and I'll let you take this on.
Do you know, luckily, here's one I prepared earlier.
No way.
This man is a Bolton Wanderers legend of the late 70s. His name is Frank Worthington. Frankie Worthington. He played for a bunch of clubs. He never actually played for a Man United or a Liverpool. I think he failed a medical. But he was, on and off the pitch, he was flash. He was exciting. You watched him, he would do something spectacular. And there is one goal that everyone at home should go back and watch. So go onto YouTube, type in Frank Worthington, Ipswich Town, 1978. And there's a situation where there's a long throw-in. It's headed on by Sam Allardyce.
Describe the goal in one word.
Impossible.
That's the word, impossible.
A goal that no one else will try.
Can I ask you one more question?
When you've got your back to goal with 5 defenders around you, nobody apart from Frank Worthington would think about flick, and then flick it over his head, spin round, and volley it in the right corner.
This was in the late 70s, this goal.
Yes.
You were there?
I was there behind the goal, age 10, with my friend Graham, who's a Man United fan. My mum took us that day.
Because something I noticed about the video is the way that the crowd moves forward after that goal.
Yes.
You're basically picked up like a sea, like a current wave.
You've seen, and there were crush barriers, and usually I'd sit on a crush barrier so that I could see above the big Boltonian men. 10 years old I was, and at the time I knew I'd just seen something special.
Wow.
I was old enough to realise that, you know what, when I'm older, I'm going to be talking about this goal.
So you must have been 9, 10 years old when the goal went in.
I was 10 years old.
Was it still, to this day, the best goal you've ever seen?
Yes.
Wow.
I've never seen a better goal.
Frank Worthington.
Frank Worthington.
Thank you for watching episode 2. Rest in peace, Benji. That's what we've got to remember. Bolton Wanderers in our hearts forever. It brings together family, community, and great moments from 10 years old to today. Thank you for watching. See you all very soon. Bye-bye.
See you.